The Trudeau government is funding a witch hunt on the energy sector and advocates like me and many of you. The Trudeau Liberals just gave a multi-million-dollar grant to the Parkland Institute at the University of Alberta and their partners at the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives to examine the corporations and the individuals driving fossil fuel extraction in Western Canada and their resulting political influence. The project is called Mapping the Power of the Carbon Extraction Corporate Resource Sector, and it has a $2.5 million grant from the Social Sciences Humanities Research Council. That's a federal government agency that promotes post-secondary research into the humanities. If you don't know or never really cared, the Parkland Institute is a far-left think tank, really far left. They employ people like Ian Hussey, who once wrote an anti-capitalist critique of the fair trade movement. And the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives is just as crazy. They have a climate justice project that includes articles about how best to deal with people fleeing global warming. It's really cold out right now. I would not flee a little global warming. But Parkland's Mapping the Power project is positively Orwellian, and I'm not even close to kidding. Let's read some of the objectives of the project. There are 4, but I'm only going to feature 2. Number 1, a systemic mapping of how the carbon extractive industry is organized, including what companies are involved, who runs them, how they are owned, and how they are connected to broader international corporate networks. And probably the most chilling is this next one. Development of an open source, publicly accessible corporate database and training program for citizens and civil society groups, many of whom will contribute and update data. That's scary stuff. It's basically a list of targets for left-wing kooks to use. This is a witch hunt on the Western economy and the people who support it and advocate for our jobs and Canadian oil exports. And you're paying for the pitchforks and the torches these people are going to take up against you. The Parkland Institute is getting a $2.5 million grant from the federal government and another $2 million from other sources to document just who you are, where you work, the businesses you own or invest in, and then make a shareable database for every crackpot, protester, and meddling left-wing academic to pester you with. I don't want the overlapping social justice weirdo movements knowing much of anything about us. These professional protesters are all the same people. Mike Hadima, the head of Greenpeace Alberta, was also the head of Occupy Edmonton. Just look at these people. That looks like a level of hell described in Dante's Inferno to me. Do you want these bucket drum banging tambourine janglers knowing anything about you? Would you give Greenpeace, Forest Ethics, Tides, or even George Soros your name, address, and business info? If the answer is no, then you should be outraged that the federal Liberals are giving Parkland Institute a big grant to do just that. I know I am. For TheRebel.media, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid.